This global warming business is anti-God.
This is Jim Baker. If you're unfamiliar, this guy went to jail for like 7 years or something like that back in the 90s for wire fraud and a whole bunch of other stuff. He was accused of doing questionable things with his secretary, all kinds of stuff. But we're not here to talk about Jim Baker. We're here to talk about the losing battle that these televangelists are fighting against climate change. It's ridiculous. Okay, so this video, this clip here, this came out late December 2022, okay? Now, this guy thought this was a good time to talk about how climate change is fake. Really? Now, in my mind, that like I can see where a lot of people feel this was depressing or they wouldn't want to hear about this. But I've got an argument for you I'm going to lay on you in just a second that makes this honestly hilarious. So stick around for a second. Quick interjection. I won't take long. I just wanted to tell you guys, YouTube's algorithm operates off of a few factors. Watch time, whether or not you subscribe, and whether or not you like something. So if you really want to help my channel, I would appreciate it if you guys watch the video to the end. If you don't watch it to the end, just watch a little bit longer than you would have otherwise. I would appreciate that very much. All right, let's get back to the video. Mid-May 2023, I mislabeled this. This is actually 2023. This one is. This is Hank Kunneman, okay? Now, Hank Kunneman is a famous pastor, friends with Kenneth Copeland, operates on Copeland's network on a regular basis, and basically toes the line and sets ideas or sets beliefs within evangelicalism, sets beliefs within Trumpism. He's also a Trumpist. Now, again, I don't understand why they're fighting this battle against climate change, but he decided to. Listen to this.
And there will be temperatures that will reach for a season in the hundreds. And it will be as though it would be 103. And you will say, what is this? And God says, do you not know Psalm 103, forget not my benefits? And then it will be 106 and 107. God says, do you not understand that the Lord is good and his mercy endures forever? And then they will say, but God, what is this about 105? And God says, do you know that I led the people out with silver and gold, and there was not one feeble as I delivered a nation? And then there was...
No joke. What this guy just said was when the temperatures reach like 106 or 107, it's not because global warming is real, not because climate change is a real thing that we need to get under control. It's a message from God. God wants you to read Psalm 106. Dead serious. This is nuts. Okay, now let me explain to you why I'm really not that worried about what these people are doing. Before you freak out about this conversation regarding global warming, here's my take on this. Just in the past 10, 15 years, we have come to the point as a society where we have successfully created technologies that are capable of completely renewable energy, and on top of that, they are financially viable, right? So at one point, we could create wind turbines back in the 90s or something. It was possible to create wind turbines and to generate power from them. But at that time, the wind turbines were shoddy. We didn't have a battery that we could use that would store the power. It cost way more money to produce them than it was worth. That's not the case anymore. We now, as of 10 years ago, have the technology to dig our way out of climate change. All we need is the will. And eventually, as Florida starts sinking, the will appear. Trust me, okay? The will show up out of the ether. These people will change their tune real quick. Ron DeSantis will change his tune real quick when his house goes underwater because of what's happening. In all seriousness, as time goes on, as things get worse, and it's simply impossible to deny, as if it's not already impossible to deny, we're just going to implement those now affordable and viable methods of renewable energy. So anyways, it's only a matter of time before these people cave, before these people give in and they say, okay, you know what? Let's just do this. But you know what? On top of all of that, on top of the fact that we have these viable technologies that are inexpensive, that are totally doable right now, that we could, as the United States, as the world, honestly, set up renewable power sources, even if it's nuclear power, even if we have to use that, which in my opinion, it's going to have to be a transition between what we're doing now, burning fossil fuels, and having everything completely renewable. Even if we went with nuclear and all of that stuff, going green that way is good for national security. Why is anybody fighting this? Do you know how many wars are fought over oil? Do you know how many people have died over oil? Really, think about this. How many Iraqi civilians have died over oil? Estimates are as high as 500,000 to 1 million. And I'm not talking Iraqi soldiers. I'm talking Iraqi civilians. Okay, there was a time when Saddam Hussein was battling the United States, kind of the underdog, you know, and he came up with this plan. Here's what he's going to do. He knows that the U.S. is going to rush his area there. So what he's going to do is he's going to build trenches, and he's going to fight trench warfare. When the Americans come along, his people are going to pop up out of the trenches with their guns, and they're going to take them out one by one. Unfortunately, that would have been a good plan back in 1876 before the tank came along, but that's why the tank was invented, was to prevent trench warfare from working. And the United States military just came in with tanks and ran right over them. They won that battle, of course. They took them out, and they took the oil. That's what that fight was over. Oil. And that's just the soldiers. I haven't even mentioned the actual bombings that took place in civilian centers. I'm talking the equivalent of Omaha, Nebraska in Iraq. I mean, people just living their lives, just walking around on the street, you know, driving their car, going to work, and suddenly bombs going off all over the place. Civilian centers. 500,000 to 1 million dead by the U.S. government. Over what? Energy. Oil. If we want national security, we need to be energy independent, and that goes for everybody, not just the United States. Why is Hank Kunneman fighting this? Why is Jim Baker fighting this battle? Why are they refusing to simply build out renewable energy infrastructure that's already halfway built out? You know how much money it would cost to build, you know, the infrastructure, the renewable energy infrastructure in the United States? It would cost about $4.5 trillion, according to Yale University, to go 100% renewable. And do you know how long it would take to pay that amount back in simply not purchasing barrels of oil anymore? Or simply not subsidizing oil companies anymore, giving them money to pull oil out of the ground? You know how much money we would actually save by spending that $4.5 trillion on renewable energy? Over the course of 10 years, we would make our money back. And that goes for the world. That's not just the U.S. We spend whatever it takes. I think estimates are like $30 trillion or something like that. A lot of money, right? Don't quote me on this. I think it's something like $30 trillion worldwide. We could build out completely and totally renewable energy across the board, everywhere on the entire planet. You know, wind turbines, solar farms, the whole 9 yards. And we would be not only carbon neutral, but carbon negative. We'd be pulling carbon out of the air for somewhere in the vicinity of $30 trillion, which is what our national debt is right now. And in 10 years, that money would be paid back to us. Like I said, we have the technology now. And what are these people doing? Instead of simply accepting the fact that this is gonna happen. Either the human race is gonna die or we're gonna build out the infrastructure. Trust me, they're gonna build the infrastructure before their lives personally are put at risk. Trust me on that one. What are they doing instead of just promoting the building out of this infrastructure? Talking about Bible verses. When it reaches 106 degrees, it means God wants you to read Psalm 106. Give me a break, dude. This guy is a joke. And not only this guy, but you know what other guy is a joke? This guy right here is a joke too. They're all jokes. Okay, I don't know what's going through their heads that they've come to this conclusion. I've got to wonder, what group of people out there has a vested interest in preventing the United States from going all renewable? It's certainly not the National Defense Group. They certainly aren't doing everything they can to prevent us from going renewable. There's somebody out there. It's like it's on the tip of my tongue, you know? Some group out there. I mean, just throwing it out there. Maybe a group that gets subsidies from the government. I don't know. I guess we'll never know. Maybe a group that is paid by the government to pull barrels of oil out of the ground every year. Just a wild guess. Let me know if you have any ideas in the comments for that. Let's keep listening to Hank Kunneman talk about Psalm 106 and all that garbage.
And it will be 106 and 107. God says, do you not understand that the Lord is good and his mercy endures forever? And then they will say, but God, what is this about 105? And God says, do you know that I led the people out with silver and gold and there was not one feeble as I delivered a nation? And then they will...
Dude, I don't know what any of this means, but I'll tell you what he's doing right now. He's prophesying, or he's claiming to prophesy. He's claiming to hear the voice of God. His eyes are closed, and the way that he's speaking sounds like he's reading from a roughly 17th, 18th century Bible, as if that's like the accent that God used just on a daily basis. Like when God talks to people, you know, when God was talking to the Israelites, he spoke with a 17th, 18th century English language accent. Totally, that checks out. But anyway, the point is, this guy is prophesying right now. This is supposed to be God giving his voice to us. That's what's happening.
And then they will say, what is this that has reached 118? And God says, it is the sign. Hosanna, Hosanna, blessed is the Lord who comes.
Dude, who the hell is Hosanna?
To save. And I have come to save this nation at this time. God says they will be shaken and some will even be removed, even as one called Tucker.
Even as one God. It's just painful, dude. And look, Mike Lindell there, listening to this. Dude, Lindell's tie, I don't think in my life I have ever seen a tie that long. That is a long heckin' tie. Maybe it's because he's sitting down. And check out Lance Walnaw here, too. Just sitting here thinking about this supposed prophecy Hank Kunneman is laying down for us. Just absurd. These people are absurd human beings, all of them. Like, come on, man. Let's listen to the entire Jim Bakker thing, though. You know, let's hear out what he said. I clipped that one little section. It was probably 5 seconds long at the beginning of this video. Let's listen to the whole thing. You know what? Maybe I took the guy out of context. Maybe we misunderstood what he's saying. Maybe he wasn't saying that climate change is anti-God. Let's give him a listen, and let's be honest about this, okay? Check this out.
This global warming business is anti-God. If you don't believe God can run things, he created this world. And a lot of people, here's what God spoke to me. I'm going to show you something I've never shared before.
Oh, he's going to give us a little prophecy here. Okay, interesting. Well, I'll tell you what, if that prophecy doesn't come true, you know what the Bible has to say about that, right? I'm just saying, this guy should be a little bit more careful about the prophecies he lays down, first of all. And second, no one ever said God couldn't run anything. He's perfectly capable of running things, whatever. I don't care. But God told us to take care of the garden, okay? In Genesis, the book said we were supposed to name the animals and we were supposed to take care of everything and make sure that it all looked good and worked properly and blah, blah, blah. We're not doing number 2. We're not taking care of the garden. And you're coming up with excuses and saying, well, God should be doing this, and not me. God delegated this responsibility to your and you are complaining that he's not fixing it. Okay, so let's listen to his prophecy, his supposed prophecy that he wants to lay down for us. Lay it on me, previous felon Jim Bakker. No longer a felon. He had it overturned after spending 7 years in jail because after his trial, the judge said to him, you are a disgrace to Christianity, and you give it a bad name. The judge is a Christian, and the judge says you give Christianity a bad name when you take advantage of people the way you do. And Jim Bakker claimed religious persecution in his trial and got his conviction overturned after 7 years. Really. After appeal, after appeal, after appeal, he finally appealed all the way to a judge that agreed with him that he was religiously persecuted, probably one that watched his show. Anyway, that's why I say previous felon Jim Bakker. Ex-inmate, probably a better word. All right, let's listen to ex-inmate Jim Bakker and alleged sexual assaulter of his secretary, Jim Bakker, tell us what God thinks about things. Go ahead.
But God spoke to me that a lot of people are not going to accept the signs, listen to me, of the second coming, that the rapture's near, because they're going to call it global warming problems.
Wow, okay. So you're telling me that God prophesied to you, like God gave you this word and nobody else. He chose you to communicate this secret message to society, and the message was, people aren't going to accept the rapture or the end times or the troubles or whatever because I'm going to call it global warming. Wow, clever. That's real clever. So let me lay out the situation for you. Jim Bakker and others, humans, are wrecking the earth right now. We have the ability to fix it right now, by the way, again, but we're wrecking it. And Jim Bakker says God wants it wrecked, or he would fix it. No, he told you to fix it. He told you to take care of it. And what are you doing? Blaming him. Genius. By the way, I don't believe for a second that you hear God's voice. In fact, I would bet $1 million. No, hell, I don't have it, but I'll tell you what, I don't even have $1 million. Hell, I don't have $1,000. But let me lay this one on you. I would bet $100 million. Every penny I make until the day that I die, that you cannot prove to me that you speak to God. I would bet it. Every penny goes to your ministry. If you prove to me that you can talk to God and that you hear his voice, I will give you every penny that I earn for the rest of my life. All I need is a little proof. Would you be surprised to find that no proof is ever forthcoming? That the guy has been lying since 1980-something, 1982? Is that how long his ministry's been around? Jim Bakker started his ministry between 1974 and 1987. I think he was trying to start a ministry and it really took off then. Bill Maher, years and years and years ago, made a joke that he would pay Donald Trump, I don't know, like $1 million or something if he could prove that he was not the love child of an orangutan or something like that, if he could produce his birth certificate, the way that he demanded Obama's birth certificate. And you know what Trump did? He produced his birth certificate showing that he was born to Fred and Mary Trump, and then he sued Bill Maher for $1 million. So I should really be careful about that kind of thing. I shouldn't just say that stuff all willy-nilly. But I am confident enough in the fact that this guy is not talking to God that I will put it all on the line. Everything. I will pay you every penny that I earn for the rest of my life. Every single penny to your ministry. If you can prove to me that you talk to God. If you can prove to anybody. Doesn't have to be me. Prove you talk to God and every penny is yours. Listen to old Lance Wallnaw here. He's another evangelical type. He knows personally Donald Trump and Steve Bannon and the whole crowd. He would be next in line to be spiritual advisor, probably. He's like really, really high up. And he has a TV show where he talks about Jesus and politics and kind of mixes the two and tries to blur the line between church and state. You know, the whole 9 yards. Close friends with Mike Lindell, too. Mid-July 2022. Listen to what this guy had to say about climate change.
The environmentalists are crazy. They are more fanatical than Al-Qaeda. In Europe, they're...
That's a tall claim, dude. Because I want renewable energy and I want to improve national security by not depending on other countries for our energy sources, I am like Al-Qaeda. That is straight up psychotic, bro. I don't know what else to call that.
The environmentalists are crazy. They are more fanatical than Al-Qaeda. In Europe, they're the reason why Germany is dependent on Russia for its energy.
Okay, let me explain the relationship. This kind of came to light, for me anyways, I discovered this, when Russia went to war with Ukraine, basically. There's something called the Nord Stream pipeline, and it's a humongous heckin' pipeline that sits under the ocean, a gigantic metal pipeline that transfers, I believe, natural gas from Russia, which has an absolute abundant supply of it, transfers it to Germany, or to the rest of Europe specifically. Germany has a really close relationship with Russia, always has. So that's what he's talking about there with, getting their energy from Russia or whatever. How could he have possibly come to the conclusion that environmentalists are responsible for people using fossil fuels in Europe? What?
Environmentalists are crazy. They are more fanatical than Al-Qaeda. In Europe, they're the reason why Germany is dependent on Russia for its energy, because they shut down energy independence. We had full spectrum energy dominance under Donald Trump. The first thing that...
Dude, he is all over the place right now. I have no clue what he's talking about. There could be an argument that environmentalists wanted nuclear power stations shut down in Germany, because there's a little bit of a split among environmentalists. Should we go with nuclear power, or is it too dangerous? Should we try to do wind turbines and stuff like that? In my opinion, I think we need nuclear energy as kind of the like the in-between, or like the transition. That's the word I was looking for. We need nuclear power as a transition between coal or fossil fuels and full renewable energy. So I'm actually in favor of nuclear energy. But Lance Wallnut is correct that environmentalists wanted the nuclear power plants in Germany shut down, and they succeeded. That being said, I mean, I have to add all this context to this, because this guy just throws out lie after lie after lie after lie. That being said, all of the energy, all the natural gas, which is a fossil fuel, coming from Russia going to the rest of Europe, was coming to Europe before. Didn't matter if there were nuclear power plants or not. I want to see more renewable infrastructure built out. And you know what? I want to see those nuclear power plants powered up again, too. In fact, I think they did power them up again, if I'm not mistaken. After Russia invaded Ukraine, Europe wasn't really comfortable with relying on Russia to any degree whatsoever at all. So I think that they powered those nuclear power plants up again. Don't take my word for that. You got to look that up to be sure. But yeah. So he's talking about that. That's a complex topic he's talking about there, right? And then somehow jumps to Donald Trump. What?
Dominance under Donald Trump. The first thing that Biden did was he shut it down. We've got the ability to...
Wait, the first thing Biden did was shut what down? What are you talking about? We had energy independence under Trump? What? No, like literally no to all of that. That's nonsense. All of it. It's all a lie. What are you talking about?
In Europe, they're the reason why Germany is dependent on Russia for its energy, because they shut down energy independence. We had full spectrum energy dominance under Donald Trump. The first thing that Biden did was he shut it down.
Like, there's just complete nonsense. What's he talking about now? There was a culture war issue a while back about the Keystone XL pipeline. It was just, I mean, I assume that's what he's talking about. I have no idea. Because he's just jumping from thing to thing to thing that makes no sense at all. The Keystone XL pipeline was being built out in 4 different stages, right? And it's a pipeline that moves oil, doesn't produce it, doesn't create it, it simply moves the oil. So I think it's coming from Canada or Alaska or something. I don't even know where it's coming from. Anyway, the idea is they drill the oil, they pull it out of the ground, they send it through the pipeline to the United States, and that makes it easier for us to access large amounts of oil, okay? So the Keystone XL pipeline was being built out in 4 stages, and it reached stage 2. So it's currently still right now in operation in stage 2. But if they reach stage 4, it would be able to transport more oil. That's basically the idea. But since Biden put a halt on the Keystone XL pipeline reaching stage 3 or 4, since he kept it at stage 2 instead, he's suddenly responsible for for us not being energy independent. Now here's an idea. You want to be energy independent? Simple problem for you. I've got the solution. Let me lay it down for you. This is what you do. You mint 4. I mean, this could be done by just Biden and Biden alone if he really wanted. This is the plan Biden could go with. Mint 4 brand new $1 trillion coins. You got $4 trillion suddenly. Deposit them in the Fed. It's a bad idea because it risks lowering the confidence of the U.S. dollar. But get $4 trillion, deposit it in the Fed, have the Fed, which is a private company, loan it to the U.S. government, and then use that $4 trillion to build out all renewable infrastructure in the United States. And then all of that, you know what? We produce 16 million barrels of oil per year, I think, right now, and we use 19 million. So we got to get like 3 million barrels of oil from somebody else, from Russia usually. You know what we do with that now? Not only are we spending money on 3 additional million barrels of oil per year, but we are now selling 16 million barrels of oil per year that we were using before, that we don't need to use anymore because we have all renewable resources. We have all renewable infrastructure. Build out a renewable energy infrastructure, and we no longer rely on other countries for energy. We no longer Russia no longer has anything to hold over our heads. And we're selling 16 million barrels of oil per year. I don't get, where are their heads? Seriously. Honestly, I'm just some guy, okay? I'm not some massive genius. I'm not Einstein. I don't have a PhD. I didn't, go to Georgetown or Yale or whatever. I'm just some dude, and I came up with this plan all by myself, me, alone. Why is it that we have people like Lance Wallnaw and Jim Baker, previous felon and accused sexual assaulter, and previous inmate Jim Baker, and Hank Kunneman? Why do we have these people complaining about renewable resources and trying to shove fossil fuels down our throats? I don't get it. Like I said, this is an easy problem to solve, truthfully. I mean, sometimes climate change feels bleak, like the route that we're on. It only feels bleak because getting the political will to get people to do something to solve the problem is like an uphill battle. But we can solve the problem tomorrow. Like I said, all we need is $4.5 trillion, which is what we spent on the Iraq war, isn't it? Okay, it's kind of hard to get an exact number here, but I think we have around 260 Predator drones, which are the ones that are used to murder people. And they cost about $12.5 million each. So that's, let's see. I mean, right there, that's $3 billion, right? That we've spent on that. Not to mention the salaries, say $70,000 to $100,000 per drone pilot. 260 drone pilots. Not to mention 2,000 additional drone pilots that are just there for like surveillance drones. They're just surveillance drones. They're getting around $70,000 to $100,000 each just to man or just to control a surveillance drone, right? I mean, how much money are we spending on the military right now that we could be spending on building out infrastructure to make it so that we don't have to worry about oil anymore? The Iraq War cost $3 trillion. The Afghanistan War cost $2.3 trillion. Instead of putting that money into drone pilots' pockets, why don't we put it into a construction worker's pocket who can build out, a solar farm or a wind turbine and improve our national security while we're at it? It's not a matter of I don't know how to anymore. It's not a matter of I don't have the technology. Not a matter of I don't have the money to do this. The Fed can print as much money as they want. That's how this works, baby. I mean, they have to loan that money to the U.S. government because it's a private company, so it has to be paid back eventually. But they could very easily, loan us $4.5 million and not bat an eye and build out this infrastructure nearly over the course of a year. Suddenly, we're no longer spending all that money on barrels of oil. It's all we got to do. Now, these people here, Hank Kunneman and, Jim Baker and Lance Wallnau, and I didn't even get to some of the others. Andrew Womack, this guy right here, Shane Vaughn, believes that climate change is a religious cult. Perry Stone, they've all spoken out against this stuff. Now, this video is getting a little bit long, but all of these people have something in common. They all hate the idea of climate change and insist that there's nothing to worry about. Well, we will see how they feel when their house is underwater. Either way, we are going to build out this infrastructure. It's just a matter of when. Are we going to build it out in the next 10 years? Honestly, it would take us a year to build out. Are we going to build out this infrastructure in 10 years, or are we going to do it in 50 years when their house is underwater? Anyway, let me know what you think about it in the comments. These people are just scumbags.